first of all, let me thank you for coming out this afternoon. One of the things that I want to do is talk about a couple different things. One is going to be the notification protocol and what we've learned. And then second is an update on an incident that occurred overnight. So on February 20th, Councilman Graham held a neighborhood association meeting at St. Paul's Church. And one of the things that we took out of that meeting was that the community wants more information, and we have to do better at getting that information out to the public when significant incidents occur. So myself and Director Tuttle with the ECC, Emergency Communication Center, worked on a notification protocol. So what we came up with was, it's basically a three-step process. So when an incident occurs, the first step is going to be a neighborhood association notification. So what we'll do is send an email out to the neighborhood association. That way the neighborhood associations can start getting that information out to the residents. And then we're also going to send an email out to the Emergency Communications Center supervisor. Then the supervisor will post that information on Nextdoor, which is also a neighborhood app, so that we're getting this information out to the citizens. Step 2 of the process is going to be a press release. That's when we have a crime that's covering a larger area, and or incidents that are occurring throughout the city. So an example I use for that are the vehicle burglaries. So if we have vehicle burglaries going on and it's occurring throughout the city, we're going to send out a press release notifying the citizens of that. And then the third is going to be issuing a code red. A code red will be used for active situations where we are requesting the public's assistance or notifying them of emergency events such as evacuation notices, missing persons, an active search for a suspect wanted for a violent crime, or a special response team call out, situations like that. One of the things that we are doing to help educate the public and to help them get signed up for Code Red and the neighborhood association is we're doing a tutorial on our Facebook page. So that's going to be posted, and it'll be a step-by-step process that's going to explain how to sign up for these different programs. Another program that I want to touch on is the crime view mapping, and you're going to see what Lieutenant Bolin is going to use for crime mapping. It's going to be a little bit different because this is the version that the police are able to access, but it's still a public access crime mapping as well. And so we'll also have a tutorial on our Facebook page of how to get signed up on that. And that will also send you alerts if you sign up for it. And you can do anywhere from 500 feet to a 2-mile radius of your residence. So that's very important. If you want to know what's going on in your neighborhood, you can sign up for that. So let me go back to the incident from last night. So we had another armed robbery in the Center Bluff area. This time it was in the 1200 block of West Nowlin. And I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Bolin, and he's going to go over the a brief overview of the incidents that have occurred in the Center Bluff, and specifically a couple that have occurred since the neighborhood association meeting that was held on February 20th. And again, going back to notification to the public, we want the public to be aware and be vigilant. So I'm going to turn this over to Lieutenant Bolin, and he will follow up.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Mike Bolin. I am in charge of the Criminal Investigations Division. And as the chief pointed out, we've had a series of robberies in Peoria going back to about February 1st. I know that he spoke about the most recent one on Nowlin, but if you'll give me a minute, I'll get around to that because I want to provide some information to you. Because we've had, that's citywide. 3 of those were business burglaries, which was broke down into 2 gas stations and 1 pizza business, which was Domino's on Prospect. We've had 1 cab driver. We've had 3 pizza delivery drivers robbed. We've had 1 person robbed at an ATM on North Knoxville. We've had 2 people who were set up to be robbed So, just to reiterate, we're most concerned about attacks and the multiple people involved, all using weapons. In the incidents where there were the two perpetrators involved, each time they've approached approached the victim in the driveways, and then they have proceeded into the house where the victim lives because they're out in search of money or valuables. And when the victim doesn't have any, then they want to go into the house or the garage or a car and steal items at that point. But luckily, there has been no injuries or attacks on those victims up to this point, aside from being the assault with the weapon. We don't really have good descriptions as far as face recognition or anything because these persons are all using masks. They're generally dressing in dark clothing. And in last night's incident on Nowland, which was in the 1200 block, a young lady was approached as she came home from work. Two males got the jump on her as she was getting out of her car, displaying handguns to her, demanded her money. They took her purse, forced their way into the house where there was another person inside, which was the victim's boyfriend. He too was caught off guard. I believe that they probably looked around the house a little bit to do a burglary while one was guarding over the victims. At any rate, they left out of there, and as far as we know, only a small amount of money and a small amount of property was taken. But there was no injuries in that incident, and we believe that that is the same MO, if you will, as three other incidences. One on Christine, in the area of Christine and Rosemead here a few days ago, and then at 400 block of West Wilcox.
Where?
400 block of West Wilcox was the other one. And if you look at the map behind me, you will see the new incidences that we just talked about. The four that have happened since the community meeting with Councilman Greb and the mayor. This was a ATM robbery. Person pulled up to the ATM and was robbed by two black males wearing dark clothes, hoods over their faces. This is the incident on Christine. Same MO as the Nowland case. Lady was approached as she pulled in her driveway. They overpowered her, and they did not end up going in the house, but they did go into the garage and burglarize the cars in the garage. And then on Wilcox here, similar MO where they two people approached a person in the driveway and took money from them. If you would like to see a map of the month of February for our robberies, I can do that as well. Now this is from February 1st until today, and as you can see, we've had the central Peoria area being hit very hard with armed robberies. Is there any questions in regards to any of that stuff?
Yeah. First off, Mike, were these armed robberies, or were these strong armed?
No, these are actual armed with weapons robberies.
So the one on Christine was an armed robbery.
Yes.
Okay. So every one of these, when you say a weapon, are they knives? Are they guns? Are they bats?
So far, this has all been handguns.
Okay. And have you caught anybody really related to any of these?
We have arrested 4 juveniles, and obviously we can't release their names because they are juveniles. However,
when did you arrest them?
A couple. I don't know the exact dates. I'd have to get back with you, but it was prior to this week. Some of those persons are persons of interest again because they were released from the juvenile detention center, and coincidentally we had more incidents occur, but we can't link them directly at this point. But the point of the matter is that even though we've made arrests in those cases, we can't say that they're responsible for all of these incidents. And by my estimation, and going back and researching the method of operation on each one of these cases, we probably have 3 or 4 different crews of people committing robberies in the city of Peoria right now.
So, who are the juveniles linked to? What armed robbery?
Their armed robberies were linked to the Central District, the lower in the McClure area here, below between McClure and Nebraska, in that area.
So, was that the one? What are some of the robberies? I mean, I personally can't tell where they are on the map.
Okay, well, if you look at each one of the little bubbles, these are the robberies that have occurred.
Right, but what I'm saying is I don't know where that is, what street is that.
The robbery that I'm talking about, with 3 of these people were arrested, was on Bartlett Court.
Bartlett?
Which would be about right in this area right here, around Sheridan and Nebraska.
So then why does it not have a little marker?
I believe it's because it was before February 1st that incident occurred. This is only February 1st until now. And then we made some juvenile arrests in other cases that were not necessarily related to the driveway robberies. There were robberies of other instances. We have a couple of people that are named as suspects. Those 2 are juveniles, and those are unrelated to the street robberies. These are acquaintance robberies. We just have not had the opportunity to pick those folks up yet.
When Chuck, sir, called his meeting, one of the things that he and many other people were upset about was the violent nature of those. And in fact, I think it was said that how rapidly these took off, that the man who was doing those 3 would get upset and immediately pistol whip somebody or punch them. I'm not exactly sure. Have we seen violence in these other ones to that level?
No. The violence in the other occurrences has simply been they're pointing a gun at you, and as long as you're complying, there isn't being any other issues. However, the case in point where the people are approached on the street of their cars by the single individual, he's going right to violence regardless of what the situation was.
And that's the violent attacks that you're most concerned about. That's the single individual where you said the 4 of the 7 resulted in violent attacks. You believe that's by one perpetrator? Correct.
And that one perpetrator has in each case violently attacked the person that he's robbing without provocation. In these other instances, there's been 2 or more people. Obviously, they're armed with guns and they are a threat, but they have not exerted violence upon the victims aside from pointing guns at them.
You have said that we have had 20, I believe is what my notes say, since the 1st of the month. And this is going to sound dumb because any robbery is bad. But we are now focusing on this. What is a normal month of robbery? There's always armed robberies.
Right.
There's always muggings. There's always strong arm. There's always pizza guys being robbed. They should not be, and that's bad. But you're going to have it. What is a normal month so we can see whether this is high or whether this is normal?
If we look back at our crime stats, we're probably about average and maybe a little bit below. The last time that I checked our historical data, we were at about 23 armed robberies a month in the city of Peoria, on average.
Is it more of the nature of these robberies that is concerning police as opposed to the number of these robberies?
The nature is the problem because of the violence associated with it, at least in the Central Bluff area. But unfortunately, it seems in the past that when we have people like this, they continue to do what they're doing until they're caught. And in some cases, it gets more violent as they go along. They become more bold, they become more confident in what they're doing, and sometimes it leads to violence.
What would you suggest to people walking to their car after work or walking in their house at night alone?
Take a look at your surroundings before you head out to your car to see if anybody's lingering around. Look behind the trees, look behind the bushes, look at the corners of the houses. You know, if you're in your car and somebody approaches you fastly, lock the door, and if you can drive away, drive away. But most definitely lock the door. Call 911 right away if that's a possibility. Sometimes you don't have that option to you. But if you are caught by the robber, then the best thing to do is to comply to the extent possible. If it comes down to the point where you have to fight for your life, then by all means do so, but try not to provoke the incident any more than it needs to be provoked. But the key is vigilance and trying to recognize danger, somebody that doesn't belong, somebody that wouldn't normally be at your neighbor's house, those type of things. If you see that ahead of time, then don't stop at your house, drive on, call the police. And certainly if anybody in the community sees a suspicious person, you know, it may not be necessarily suspicious to the police if we drive by, but if you live in that neighborhood and you see someone there that doesn't fit, doesn't belong, you've never seen them before, may be a good time to call the police, because we can always stop. We may not be able to arrest them or do anything with them under that sense, law enforcement wise, but we can certainly have a talk with them and see what they're doing and what they're up to, and maybe find out who they are, which in turn may lead to a crack in the case. So any information that the public has is what we're looking for.
Is there a specific type of victim that is being targeted with the 7 violent attacks?
The 4 violent attacks all seem to be people that were elderly citizens or frail or infirm, more or less. In those attacks, they weren't attacking younger people that, in my opinion, could fight back very easily. In some of these other robberies, we're not sure if those are opportunity type of robberies where they just come upon somebody and decide to rob them, or if they're trying to plot out who their victims are going to be. That's yet to be determined, because we have had cases where people were robbed, but they were robbed because of some other kind of activities that they were involved in, and they were targeted by another group. So, you know, it's hard to say without catching these people and finding out for sure what their motivation was. So all we can work off right now is the locations, the victimology, who our victims are, and what they're involved in, and try to put the pieces together.
Mike, is another thing that has you and the chief and others worried is that the seemingly random nature of this. When you go after a pizza guy, he has got money. When you go rob someone for a Craigslist sale, they have goods, they have items, they have money. When you go set up a person, it's a targeted thing. Apparently these, and I don't know whether it's true or not, so please tell me if it is, it seems like these are targets of opportunity, that there's really no target, that they're walking around, and if they see somebody, it might just be your bad luck. It is your turn to be, and I'm not trying to be cruel about it, but that's what it sounds like. True or false?
Most of the street robberies that we've seen, in our estimation, are opportunistic points for the suspects. They're seeing someone alone pulling in their driveway, they're not paying attention, and they get the jump on them, and then they go ahead and commit their robbery. It's very easy for these suspects to hide because they're usually wearing dark clothes. One thing that we do know from all the victims, they've said that they're younger, they're either teens or early 20s. They're short, and anywhere from 5'7" to 6 foot is what descriptions we've gotten, but they've all pretty much been thin builds. So, I mean, it's very hard to narrow down people based on that description because it's very generalized.
So just to clarify, how many different, I know you kind of laid it out before, but so how many different suspects are we looking at, and which ones are associated with which crimes? Because then you were mentioning arrests of juveniles, so which one, are these associated with the violent attacks that we're looking at?
That's a tough question to answer, just standing here and trying to put all this together and talking about stuff. You wouldn't know what I was talking about. But I do have a sheet here that's color coordinated, and those color coordinated spots are similar. So if it's pink, then all the pink are the same. If it's green, then they're associated. If they're orange, they're associated. Yellow's associated. And so that's why I say, based on this, we have 4 to 5 groups, if you will, that are active.
Are the events happening at certain times of day, like specific times of day, or is it happening at all times of the day?
The majority of them have been centered around 2 in the afternoon till 8 o'clock at night. In our opinion, we believe that we've slowed the lone wolf attacker down because of the patrols that we've been doing in the area. In addition to that, Councilman Gregg set up the community meeting, which opened the eyes of all the people in the community, and we have been getting lots of calls from them reporting suspicious activity and suspicious behavior, which is great because that gets the officers there. The street officers are seeing, the covert officers are out there. They've made some stops on people, and we have not had any more attacks since the 2 weeks in the middle of February. So cross our fingers that we don't have any more, but we still would like to go out here and locate this person.
Are all 20 robberies with a handgun, or just most
Yes,
of them?
all of them are with a handgun.
And it's exactly 20?
Yeah.
You mentioned that the juveniles were arrested sometime last week, as I think you said prior to this week. So sometime.
I have to check back and see exactly when they were arrested, but it was prior to a week ago.
Okay, so they had been out doing whatever, and you guys either you guys had not caught them yet, or you guys didn't know about them yet. So that is why you think that they could be linked to these other ones, right?
We believe that the people that were locked up in JDC for a prior incident and another incident that was related to the last incident that they were arrested for, if you can get this all straight, they've been released, so they're out running the streets. And it is very possible that those people are responsible for more robberies that have occurred within the last couple of weeks.
And that is and they were picked up prior to the month of February, and then they got picked up a second time.
Because I don't know for sure, and I don't want to give you the wrong date. But
I understand. I'm just confused, and I think that because we're talking about this and that, we're not mentioning names, which obviously that we can't, and we're not talking about times and weeks and locations. So we're talking about this and that and whatever, and there's a lot of pronouns flying around. So I just want to find out. So there were the 3 to 4 kids that you guys think did a robbery on Bartlett Court before February. Chief?
Let's do this. To make it less confusing for you, what we'll do is Lieutenant Bullen will pull up the report, get the information, and then send it.
Okay.
So that way we're not guessing.
And again, I am not trying to be a pain, but what I'm trying to get at is that people are going to want to know, and I think that all of us want to know here, what is being done to possibly catch these people, because you said there's 3 to 4 groups, and it appears that you caught one group, and then they went to JDC, and then they got out, which is normal, and then you think that they could be. Would that be the same group, or would that be a new? Do you see what I'm saying?
I think at this point it's still
okay
early to tell and to correlate, how many are involved in each one. So what we'll do is look at the arrests that we have, send the information out, so then that way you can relate what incident occurred where. And a couple things I want to touch on that Lieutenant Bullen talked about was the enormous support that we've had from the community after the neighborhood association meeting. We've been getting a lot of information, which is great. We cannot solve these crimes by ourselves. We cannot have a police officer on every corner, on every street. So that's why it's so important for the community to get involved. And that's why, when we hear the feedback that, we need more information. So it's on us about getting that information out so that we can get the response back from the community. And like I said, after we've had the neighborhood association meeting, we've been getting a lot of support from the community, and that is key here. We don't want everyone to be in fear, but we want them to remain vigilant as to their surroundings. Like Lieutenant Bolin said, a lot of these crimes may have been able to be avoided if people were aware of their surroundings. So just want to keep that in mind. One of the things I talked about earlier with the three-step process of what we're looking at, one of the things we did first thing this morning was after last night's incident, we sent an email out to the neighborhood association. So that's already done. And now instead of doing a press release, felt it's more important to do a press conference and get this information out so we can just better inform the public.
And you said the two things you're doing tutorials on are Crime View and Nextdoor, is that right?
Crime View and Code Red is
Red.
what we'll have a tutorial on our Facebook page. And then as far as we'll send a probably a press release out explaining about the neighborhood associations, how you can sign up for them as well.
When will those be posted, or kind of TBD?
Today. I'd just like to extend the opportunity to Councilman Gray. I didn't know if he wanted to mention anything since he's here. I do appreciate him coming out and helping us with this.
Thank you, Chief. I just want all of you to know that the mayor and the Peoria City Council appreciate all of the detailed work and resources that have been concentrated toward the end of apprehending those responsible for these cowardly and malignant attacks on innocent people in our community. I am very proud of our Peoria Police Department. I'm proud of the work that's been done by Chief Marion, our Lieutenant Bolin, Captain Scally, Captain Green, our Deputy Superintendent Mike Mushinsky, and I'm also equally proud of the work all of you have done by covering these events, and the response from the people of Peoria who are going to assist in resolving all these cases has just been huge. My phone started ringing the next morning from people all over the city saying, I think I may know who this person is, and immediately I turned the information over to the appropriate police official. I'm looking at one of them right now, Deputy. And we do take this very seriously. We have had to say that these are disturbing events, and the sheer number of them on innocent people. I guess a clinical term could be soft targets. To say that that is a great concern is just an understatement. The people of Peoria will not tolerate it. And the police department will leave no stone unturned to find those responsible. And I want to thank all of you for coming here today. And Chief, I want to thank you and your department and Lieutenant Bolin, the detailed work that your investigative unit has done to help bring these people to justice. Thank you.
Could I just ask one quick thing? Chuck, it could be you, the chief, Mike. Why do you think that all this is happening right now? First off, what I want to know is, Mike, when you said that we tend to average between 20 and 23, are they concentrated most of the time in the middle part of town, or are they more spread out? Is this odd to have a seemingly rash of robberies in the middle part of the city?
I think that the location of the robberies that we're having currently speaks to the people that are committing those crimes. Generally, they stay in the same neighborhoods where they live and commit the crimes there too. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is that I really can't answer about crime in the past without having any looking into it further to find out. So I really can't give you a specific answer on that. But we know there are certain areas in town here that do see an uptick in crime versus other areas. And in the past few years, the central district there, and this particular area, has seen an increase in crimes. So I hope that answered your questions, but otherwise I can't directly give
glaring sign of gang activity, or are these just individuals?
Gang activity is kind of a loose term anymore because there's so many different kids that they call themselves gang members, but they are fluid. They're in and out of the gang, and they're changing friends all the time. So to call them a particular gang is probably not the right word. What we kind of call them now is crews or sets, because they're constantly evolving. So do we think that it's probably a crew? Yeah, there's probably several little crews of friends that get together and do this.
Just one thing in closing, and Andy touched on it earlier with a question, but the Councilman Gray brought it up. I want to assure the public that the Peoria Police Department is working very hard on this, and we're deploying our resources. To answer Andy's question, I cannot get into how we are strategically deploying our resources, because we don't want to tip our hand and let the suspects know what we're doing out there. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. Thank you.